Nikki, I don't want to put my money in an IRA. I don't want to lock it up. Nikki, I don't want to put any money in a 401k. I can't access that until retirement. I need money now. I know, it's difficult. It's difficult to think about taking your money and putting it into an account to where you can't withdraw the money until you're 59 and a half without penalty. Or can you? In this video, I want to break down ways that you can actually get money out of your IRA accounts and maybe even your 401k account that you can avoid taking the 10% penalty. It's not all bad. Believe it or not, there are ways that you can get money out of an IRA specifically without paying a 10% penalty. One of my favorite things to do is to go onto the irs.gov website and just read. I know I'm a weirdo, but look, here's the deal. You can get a lot of information from the irs.gov website. Don't sleep on it. It's actually full of information, particularly this great chart that they created for us that shows the exception to the 10% penalty on different types of accounts. So they have a column for qualified plans, aka your 401k, and then they have your IRA, your SEP IRA, your simple IRA, essentially IRA accounts. And so you either get a yes or a no on certain categories. So obviously the big kahuna is once you turn 59 and a half, woohoo, you can take your money out of either account penalty free. Yes. But what I find interesting is that there are some exceptions that people don't even know about. After death and disability, obviously, these are going to be exceptions to where you can get money out. But one thing that I think a lot of people don't realize is they can take money out of these accounts, or at least you can take money out of an IRA specifically for qualified higher education expenses. So you got to figure out what qualified is. And of course, there's a page for that on the irs.gov website. Don't get too excited. When we look at qualified education expenses for tapping into your IRA account, think a qualified college and think things like tuition and fees. There may be other eligible expenses, and you can work directly with the CPA to confirm what would be a qualified education expense before you pull the money out of the IRA. Another pretty cool penalty exception to pulling money out of an IRA early is going to be the first-time home buyer exclusion. And this is up to $10,000 that you can pull out penalty-free. Keep in mind, with any of these exceptions to the penalty, you may owe income tax because if you put the money in tax-free, you may have to pay federal income tax on the money that you're pulling out, but you will avoid that 10% penalty. So it could be a strategy if you are going to take advantage of any of these penalty exception reasons. It could be a strategy to do this in a low income year so that you can essentially control the tax rate that you're paying on the money and still benefit from the traditional IRA. If it's a Roth IRA, you've already paid taxes on the contributions, but there could be a gain in the account that you may owe federal income tax on. So the home buyer exception is actually pretty handy for people that want to buy a home but don't really have the savings, or they don't quite have enough of savings, and this could be a source for them to be able to get money towards the down payment. FHA loans, those are typically going to be lower down payments, and this would make a lot more sense. But a conventional loan that's 20% down, obviously, $10,000 may not be a whole lot, may not be very helpful. So it just kind of depends on your situation. But this is definitely something that you could take advantage of. Now, you may be somebody that's bought homes in the past and you're not a first-time home buyer for the sake of this exception. But keep in mind, for the purpose of this, the definition of a first-time home buyer is somebody that hasn't purchased a main residence in the past 2 years. So basically, if it's been 2 years or more since you've purchased a home, you're considered a first-time home buyer for the purposes of this exception. Now, here's an exception that counts towards 401ks and IRAs. And this exception is for any unreimbursed medical expenses that are greater than 10% of your adjusted gross income for 2021. Essentially, what the medical expenses exception is trying to do is if you have a year where medical bills are a very high percentage of your income, then this is going to give you a place to be able to pull funds from to be able to help cover some of those expenses without taking that 10% penalty for early withdrawal. And keep in mind that this is also for not only your IRA, but also your 401k or your qualified plan. Now, health insurance premiums, this is one that a lot of people don't know about. Now, this one only applies to an IRA. Essentially, if you are unemployed for whatever reason, you may be able to take health insurance premiums from your IRA account penalty free. The government basically wants you to keep your insurance. And believe it or not, if you promise to the government that you will take an equal amount of payments over the rest of your life, you can actually start pulling from your IRA. But the payments have to be equal over the rest of your life. So if you have a lot of time left and you have a smaller IRA balance, those are going to be very small payments. So really, somebody may not want to be looking at the equal payments exception until they really have a very large account balance to where it makes sense for them to break up the payments in an equal payment for the rest of their life. So that's another one a lot of people actually don't know about. I highly encourage you to take a look at this chart yourself. This is, again, the retirement topics exception to tax on early distributions. And it's going to not only give you the exceptions for the qualified 401k plan, but also for the IRA plan. And I think that it's just interesting to kind of look through these and educate yourself about them. Another thing that you can actually do is essentially a Roth conversion ladder. So when you contribute to a Roth IRA, your money that's being contributed is already taxed. So you're able to pull out your contributions at any given time. So what a lot of people will do is if they have a lot of traditional IRA money, they will actually convert the traditional IRA money into a Roth IRA, and they'll kind of do this over the years. And what that's doing is every Roth conversion that happens, it has a 5-year waiting period until you can take the money out. So even though you're converting it and you're paying tax on the money right now, the IRS is basically putting a stop in place because they don't want you to just convert money from traditional to Roth and just take it out immediately. So if you are not converting and you're just depositing money and you're contributing money just right away into a Roth, that money can be taken out at any time. Not the gains, but the actual contribution, the original contribution. But with a conversion, which is taking traditional IRA money and converting it to a Roth IRA, there that money has to be in that account for 5 years until you can pull that conversion out. So what people will do is they will periodically convert money from traditional IRA to Roth IRA. They have a 5-year waiting period till they can pull that conversion out, and so on and so forth. So every new conversion has a new 5-year waiting period. So throughout your life, depending on how you do the conversions, you'll have periods of time going forward where you have a conversion that 5 years it's been in there, you can pull it out if you really need it, and you can, use it, and there's no penalty because you've already paid taxes on it. When you did the conversion, the money was in there for 5 years. It was your original contribution. You can pull it out. So that is a strategy that people have become more privy to, and they're starting to utilize it more. But again, this all depends on your tax situation. That may make no sense for you if you're, in a very high tax bracket and you don't really need to have that money available to you. So it depends on a lot of different things, your full financial picture, if it's even worth doing something like that. But it's definitely a strategy that is becoming more popular to avoid locking up that money for too long. Hopefully that was some food for thought. If you liked this video, please give it a like, hit that little like button, subscribe if you're not subscribed, and I'll see you next time.